stage is yours. Have fun.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction, Hendrik, and the keynote. I'm quite excited to be back at the JFX days. I'm just setting my timer so that I don't run out of time. And let's do this. JavaFX and modules and Java 11 and LTS and all these things, we are really excited about working with the latest changes of Java, but that also comes with challenges. So many people have seen that since Java 9 came out, JavaFX 9 also came out, JavaFX supports modules, but not that many people have jumped into modules. And I don't know exactly where the reasons are, but personally, it is because I have found the JPMS to be a little bit daunting to work with. And now, hopefully, what I'm going to show today will give you an idea of what can be done with JPMS and JFX if you have not jumped already. Okay, so just quickly, my name is Almiray. I love open source. I work for Oracle, and I'm here to talk about a project that I discovered this year called Layrry. So you may be aware that JPMS stands for the Java Platform Module System, also known as Project Jigsaw, came out in Java 9, which is close to 4 years ago or so. And it was designed to break down the JVM monolith, but the designers and the architects of Java saw that what they were doing this in order to unravel the amount of code that they had within the JVM, that the facilities that we're producing could be useful for us and consumers or developers, right? So that's how we got JPMS. But however, if you ask developers what is the experience working with JPMS, you may identify with some of these things that I'm going to say right now. So JPMS only allows for one version of a module. As a matter of fact, the specification says nothing about versioning modules. It actually says one thing: you should not version your modules at all. There is no support for version modules. So if you have conflicting versions, conflicting classes in your module path, then you'll be in trouble. JPMS also doesn't allow you to add modules at runtime. So once you have built your application, you have designed your application in such a way that you put all the modules together and you're running your application, you cannot add or remove modules. So there's no hot class reload in this case. You also have to modularize all your dependencies to reap the benefits of JPMS. And because not everybody has jumped ship into JPMS, we're in a little bit of a flux and a migration problem. It's also hard to map a dependency coordinate to a module dependencies because the specification, again, doesn't say how jar or how a module should be put together. Right now, it's just a coincidence that we have a one module per jar. So that makes it easy, convenient, but it's not part of the spec. And well, also, if you have non-exported packages of different modules, so this is the problem of split packages, which we used to have before in Java 8. And if you run in the class path, it's still fine. So a package that lives in different jars, but this is disallowed in the module system. But of the many different APIs that were added to JPMS, there is one thing that I also was not aware of, and thanks to Layrry, I became aware of this API. It's called module layers. And it's thanks to this standard API that we can do something about the problems that I just described. If you browse to the Java doc of JDK 9 onwards, you will find this class called module layer, which is basically, it allows you to compose modules based on paths, and you can have different layers. So in some sort of hierarchy, one layer depends on another in such a way that structures the class loading. And it's thanks to modules that we can have isolation within the different layers. So this is the API that comes from JPMS. Basically, what we want to do in lines 4 and 5 is locate the archives that provide modules. So these are standard jars. And then we create something called a module finder and a configuration. We put everything together, and then we can bootstrap our application using class loader. So it's quite direct, but it's not really very user-friendly. But with this API, we can do stuff like this. So we'll say that you have an application that depends on 2 modules, foo and bar, and both of them depend on a common module, which is log4j API. But notice that foo depends on greeter version 1, and bar depends on greeter version 2. This will be a problem in JPMS. because, well, those two modules have the same module name, but are different versions. And this is where Layrry comes in, because Layrry allows us to have a modular application like this, any Java application. And of course, in our case, we would prefer it to be Javafx. So Layrry lives currently at this location. It's part of the Moditech organization on GitHub. Layrry is a project created by fellow Java champion Gunnar Morling, currently working as an open source engineer at Red Hat. He is the lead of the Vision, the Change Data Capture project, and is the spec lead of Beam Validation 2, and he likes to blog at morling.dev. And when he created this project, he was just looking at a way to figure out if it was possible to have conflicting versions of modules in the module path. Now, this is what the Layrry API looks like. It's basically the same example, the same diagram that we saw before, but it's just organized in different layers. So we have the base layer, the log layer that has log4j and our own applications, log config, abstraction on top of that, or resources. And then we have the full layer that depends on log. And also you can see that it depends on greater version number 1. The bar layer that depends also on log and depends on greater version number 2. Again, these are the two conflicting modules. And then we have the app layer that composes on top of foo and bar. And then we just run this thing. And because of the nature of layers, these conflicting classes, conflicting modules will work. If you do not like to use the API, or do you think that this is some sort of configuration that can be externalized, then I agree with you. And Layrry allows you to externalize this configuration using YAML, which is quite popular format. This is exactly the same example we saw before in the API, but with external configuration. But if you do not like a YAML, then don't worry, because if you are like Bruno and think that YAML is not the way to go, there are other formats such as TOML. This again is the same example, a different formatting. And Layrry is extensible. So if you do not like TOML or YAML, or you prefer XML or some other format, it will be not that difficult to hook in a different configuration puzzle. But now, this is the real deal. This is the reason why I want to talk to you about Layrry. It's not just the conflicting modules resolution, but the plugin architectures, the capability of an application to be able to enhance its behavior by adding or removing plugins at runtime. So this sounds like IDEs. Now, Layrry has just one interface. It's called Plugin Lifecycle Listener. And whenever a plugin, this is a plugin that you control, it's an application plugin, gets added or is detected by the Layrry plumbing system, then it will trigger the first method, plugin added. And when a plugin is removed, then it will trigger the second method. So you can add plugins by copying files and jars into specific directories. But if you were to write a JavaFX application, you will probably write a menu that takes a jar or maven dependencies coordinates, and it will do the downloading and put the jars in the appropriate directory. And then Layrry will detect that change and then let you know that something will have to be changed. Now, this is the first entry point. And you as a developer are tasked by reacting to these changes. So one way to do it is by using the service loader interface, in which case the my service type is your type, is an application type, and it's loaded via the module layer. And once you know you have a new service, then you can do whatever you want with that particular instance. I'm going to show an example of that run in just a moment. But before I do, there is one thing that you may be aware since JavaFX came out, in JavaFX 9, and is that we have the artifacts have a specific platform classifier. So we have one for Mac, for Linux, and for Windows. So if we were to write an XML file or YAML or TOML that will resolve to the JavaFX artifacts, we will also have to take into account the classifiers. And either we write a different files for each platform, or we write a single file that can take care of the different platforms. And that we call parameterization. And Layrry provides this out of the box. So here is an example. This is actually the example that we're going to showcase today. This is a simple application where we can externalize the versions. As a matter of fact, we can externalize anything we want to. Is any text that you see there can be externalized. This is just a mustache-based template. And notice that the JavaFX artifacts have a specific OS-detected JFX classifier. This is a value that is computed by Layrry automatically, and depending on the platform, it's going to resolve to Mac, Linux, or Windows. So you only need to provide the version if you want to, specifically, directly, or you can use the versions properties or external properties file. So once we have something like this, external configuration or direct Layrry API, how do you launch your application? Well, there is a shaded yard that contains everything. So you can run it like this, or you can create your custom launcher. So for any reason whatsoever, or in the future, what we're going to provide is binaries so that you can download it using SDK Mint or a direct GitHub release or some other medium for you to consume these artifacts. So now let me show you the demo and the reason why I'm so excited about Layrry. I have an example here, which is public, is part of the Layrry examples. It's a JavaFX application that uses Han Solo's TilesFX project. And I'm going to run it in this way. So there are many ways to run it, and JBank is just another way for me to launch the Layrry launcher. And I pass two parameters, the terminal configuration, which is exactly the one that we saw on the slides, and the versions properties. And before I do this, let me show you the staging directory where the layers file is located. The plugins directory is where I can load dynamic plugins. And plugins prepared is completely separate from the application. From here, I'm going to copy into the plugins directory. All right, so I'm going to launch this and put it in the background. And the window will appear in just a moment. And I'm going to move it here. So here are the tasks. There's nothing there at this moment. So I'm going to copy from the staging directory, plugins prepare, into staging plugins. And once I finish this execution, you will see that the JavaFX application reacts to changes. Boom. You can tell that this is live because the clock and the date are from today and the UI is updating. Now I can simply delete one of these things, staging plugins. Let's delete the one in the middle, like this. Now it's gone. And I can delete the other one. It's gone again. And I can copy back again, all of them. Boom, they're back. How would you do this? Well, again, it's time to Layrry. And I'm going to showcase quickly the code. We need here in the source. This is the thing that we're loading. This is what represents each one of the tiles from TilesFX. And how do we load them? We use this plugin lifecycle listener. It's our own class, application class that extends a Layrry type. So whenever a plugin is added, so whenever a jar is added, being watched in that particular directory where Layrry is taken care of, it will add stuff to an application-specific plugin registry class. And when a jar gets removed, it will also ask again the plugin registry to remove that. If you were to look into the plugin registry, what it does is grab a list of the current plugins. Every plugin has an ID. And if we have a context, that means the JavaFX has it initialized. If it's not, then it's going to refer that this is useful when the application is bootstrapping and JavaFX is not yet ready. And if it's there, then it will just handle the plugin registration. And when in registers, it just removes from that map. So again, this is your code, and it's not that difficult to replicate. It's basically much more like an idiom that can be reproduced for any JavaFX application. So it's likely that a JavaFX-based framework could reproduce this code in order to provide a menu. Instead of just me copying files outside, then I can go here and there will be a menu where it says add jar or add plugin, remove plugin, or it's maybe some kind of plugin updater, and you pass in Maven coordinates, whatever it have you, and this will automatically download the files and the jars, put them in the right places I mentioned before. So basically, this is it. And I realize that I'm speaking very fast and I only have like 2 more minutes left. And I'll leave you with some resources. There are 3 blog posts so far that Gunnar has posted: the announcement of Layrry, the motivation of Layrry, then the plugin architectures when he showcases what I just showed today, but using Vertex, but you can modularize pretty much any Java application. And the last one is he did a bit of research on class unloading in Layrry applications. because we are loading and unloading classes at runtime, there may be the problem of memory leaks. This JFX application that Samar had a memory leak, and he was able to find it because Layrry publishes JFR, Java Flight Recorder events. And thanks to this, we were able to find there was a problem, and we fixed the problem. So the application that you see there, which is part of Layrry examples, is well-behaved, no longer has any memory leaks, and is very easy to follow the code. At least I hope so. So with this, I thank you very much for listening. And in case that you have any questions, I will be very happy to take them. If not, let me leave you again with the resources, the link to the project, Moditech Layrry, and we're hoping to make a release very soon. Okay, so I have any questions?
I had a look at the chat. There were some good comments, but no questions so far. Oh, now we have a question. The question is if the unloading of plugins works on Windows 2.
Yes, it works on all platforms where JPMS is active. We only watch, what Layrry does is use the Java NIO APIs to watch over a directory. And that works on all platforms where Java works.
And do you think that this is already ready for production mode?
We believe so, and we are quite ready to make the first release. Of course, you can consume it right now if you build your own snapshot. You can also consume dependencies via Jetpack. That's how I was able to run it today. And we are just waiting to fix one more issue before we can call the first alpha release. Given that it's coming the time of the holidays, we'll see if we can make it happen as a Christmas present, or it may be ready early next year.
Okay, cool.
So the problem with deleting jars that it was loaded by the class, or yes, I'm aware of this. This is a problem on Windows, but it's not a problem for us because we are not using strange file APIs. Native compile native binaries. Yeah, right now Graal does not support fully loading applications using JPMS. There is an open ticket and there's ongoing work on it. Once Graal supports loading modules, whether Graal itself is modularized or not is besides the point. But once they support modules, we'll see and still we'll have to figure out if they will allow dynamic loading of classes. It's right now it's just an unknown yet because the point of building a native application is that you are no longer working with Java, you're working with native code. And your jars will be standard code unless there will be a way to transform those jars or plugins into native and then let the native image of your application incorporate those things. Again, right now, we don't know what's going to happen because it's not yet possible. But once we have the option to run modules inside Graal, we will certainly investigate if there's some sort of combination that you can have a native application with Java plugins or native application with native plugins.
Andres, could you put these under the SDK in your application?
So what's the question again, Wolfgang?
Because you can provide a native image with Graal. Could you use the SDK within jars to build a native image from hand, from scratch?
I suppose you could. We haven't tried it yet.
Okay, that could be a possibility.
Yeah, another thing that we're trying and we haven't yet figured out exactly how it's going to work is to ship a modular application that has Layrry as a JLink image, because module layers need to find the module information from paths. And if you have everything we're saying a JLink image, then what you have are module IDs. And so we'll see. There are a few things that we're still investigating how Layrry can help you. But there are some open issues that will not stop us from releasing version 1 and say that native image integration and JLink image may come after the 1.0 gets released.
Thanks.
How would you remove dynamically plugins in production? Well, if you're using the JFX application, I would certainly recommend you to build, well, provide a menu bar, a button, a toolbar, some sort of it, and a dialog that says, you know exactly which directories are being watched, which directories provide plugins, and then you can provide perhaps it's a list view, a table, some other sort of metadata that you can consume. And then give the choice, the user, to maybe it's a checkbox or some other means to say, I want to delete this, I want to remove this, or I want to add something else. Again, the Layrry and JPMS just gives you the starting point, but what is specific to your application will be a plugin updater or some sort of that. Again, there may be in the future a JavaFX-based framework that builds on top of Layrry or JPMS to give you this capability almost for free. Just add one more jar into your JavaFX application.
Just for you, I just showed the schedule as information, not to stop you answering questions.
So using Layrry requires that the workstation has Java SDK installed. How do we know the app executing Layrry can run on the same Java SDK? Yes, right now, again, Layrry is just an API that sits on top of JPMS. It does not take care of provisioning the JDK for running the application. One thing that we're looking at, there is already a pull request that was mentioned yesterday, so that you can package your application with all jars located in the file system in a local repository that's completely separate from Maven. Because one thing that was not clear perhaps is that Layrry resolves dependencies using Maven coordinates. You can configure this, of course, and you can completely say to Layrry, don't listen to Maven, work offline and use these locally available jars. But what also thing that we're looking at, there's another pull request coming out very soon, is that instead of having the layers file locally in your workstation, you can point Layrry to a layers file that is available somewhere else on the net. And if you are resolving dependencies via Maven coordinates, then you can pull in everything from the network. What is still missing is the question, the original question. How do I ensure that I have the right Java version in order to run a Layrry-powered application? We don't know yet if Layrry should provide an answer for this. If we do, then this will be a matter of creating another kind of launcher. If we don't, then somebody else can build a specialized launcher that can detect which version of Java needs to be run and then download everything through Layrry. Can you run multiple different apps with different Java versions? Yes, of course. Right now, the Java SDK is completely external to Layrry. Perhaps someone will come up with a metadata format that defines what is the SDK and the layers file within any of the supported formats that Layrry has and versions, properties, whatever it is, just one tiny package, and you download that from the network, and maybe it has its own auto updater, or maybe it relies on Layrry to do the on updating through Maven. We'll see. What we want is for you people to give it a try, to come up with these use cases, and we can see and talk to us, and then we can see if there's something that we can add to Layrry core that needs to be added, or maybe it's just documentation for externals to come up with these solutions.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, thanks a lot, Andres.
Can configure the Maven endpoints. So for Layrry, we still don't have, but I can post in the chat. What we have is Moditech Layrry like this, and here's the chat. This is the project for Layrry, and if you want to see the examples with the JavaFX application, it's called Modular Tiles, and it's posted on the second link. The instructions on the README of all the examples will tell you exactly what you need to do in order to run these applications with either Maven or Gradle.
Cool. Just a question. I've seen you already in the audience. Maybe you can already unmute yourself and activate your camera so that we can check if everything is working. And if there are still any questions for Andres, just ask your questions or get a coffee, because in 6 minutes we will continue with the next session.
There's another person. Can two plugins communicate with each other, calling methods? Yes, and what I would suggest you to do is you could use the service loader interface to try to communicate these very things. That's how we do it with the tiles in the modular tiles application. There is no dependency injection per se, as you probably saw in the code. The plugin registry class is a magic singleton. So static singleton is not something that has a DI. But once you are inside your class, this plugin registry, you could, if you're using a Spring or some other dependency injection mechanism, then you could load, well, once those plugins have been loaded, you could do dependency injection so that they can add additional services to communicate to one another. Well, thank you very much, everybody. And so I'll leave you with the links, and we look forward to your questions. If you give Layrry a try, let us know how is it working, what is not working for you. If you found any problems with JavaFX specifically, also let us know. I'm very keen on having modular applications with JavaFX working as best as they can. If you have any problems with deployment or any other issues just again, let us know.
Cool. Okay, so 4 minutes left until the next talk. If you want to drink something, hurry up. Again, Andres, thank you very much for having an introduction into Layrry. I think it's quite an interesting and important project, not even for JavaFX, but I like the JavaFX samples here especially.